The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome to Steer the Line, where every Friday we give you NFL analysis, fantasy football breakdowns, and sports betting previews. I'm Christian Giordani, joined alongside lou-desmo and Rocky Giordani. Now let's get ready to steer the line. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another segment of Steer the Line. I'm your host, Christian Giordani. Alongside me today, I have lou-desmo. Loud, how you doing today?
I'm good. I've got some good news. We may be getting our contract back with, well, I can't mention the name yet because it's not officially signed, so I don't want to say anything. But we have, in the past, had an association with a company that did exclusive number crunching for us to help predict the outcome of NFL games. And we may have them coming back again. I'm going to close that deal before the start of the NFL regular season. And if so, it'll be big. It'll be fun to have some proprietary numbers again that will give us some insight. For a stat head like you and for people that are interested in betting on the NFL, NFL Plus is a subscription. It's $9.99 a month for the basic, which gives you access to some out-of-market games and some content. But the big thing for bettors and stat heads is the premium at $16.99 a month gives you access to a treasure trove of data that the NFL has been keeping for years, but has not been releasing. So it's much deeper than the, this many yards per game, this many points per game. I mean, the NFL stats that you can get are pretty basic. Now, you can go other places like Pro Football Focus and so forth and get their estimates. But, for example, it's data like this. C.J. Stroud hits 52.5% of his passes over 20 yards. That is a full 20% better than any other quarterback in the NFL.
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't know if that's because his receivers got so much more separation, which, by the way, that stat is available. Average separation by receivers, by receiver, by team. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy level stuff. But knowing that, man, CJ Stroud may just be my fantasy quarterback if he's there in the third round.
100%, man.
If he's there in the third round, that's my guy. And now I'd be afraid of picking a particular receiver on the Texans. You've got Stephon Diggs, you've got Tank Dell, you've got the tight end, you've got Joe Mixon out of the backfield. You've got a couple more receivers. I'm not sure that any one receiver is going to, blow up fantasy like it's like Justin Jefferson or something, because CJ Stroud is all about just who's the open guy, and he hits them. But he hits a lot of deep balls, way better than – I was amazed he was that much better than Patrick Mahomes. That's my nickname for Patrick Mahomes, Pepper. But I'm not going to go into why because it's rude, but I'm just going to leave it there. Okay. So what do you think about accessibility to those kinds of stats as a stat geek, Christian?
Oh, it's one of the biggest things. If you're looking to bet on football or play fantasy football, you have to be a nerd about it. You can't really just coast by on. Yeah, you can't coast by on raw football knowledge. Obviously, there's some things that are just there. You don't pass up on a guy like Christian McCaffrey in the first round. But to look at those next gen stats, and one of the biggest stats you can have for a late round pick in fantasy football and in betting wise is sprint speed. Fastest guys on the floor are usually the ones that get the most separation. And there's a lot of guys that were falling in last year in positions. An example we can go with is Sam Laporta. He was the fastest tight end in sprint speed last year, and he finished as the tight end.
He was my
7.
fantasy tight end.
Yes.
Because see, there's a huge advantage to being a college football fan and an NFL fan that plays fantasy football, because a bunch of the guys in my league don't watch college football. And so they don't know who the really bright rookie stars might be. So last year I took Sam Laporta in the 4th round, and everybody's like, who the hell is Sam Laporta? And I'm like, oh, you wait and see. And sure enough, he was one of the top tight ends. It's important. You got to know your numbers, because here's the thing, especially in like a 12-team league, by round 3, now let's go to round 4. By round 4, if that's 24, 36, 48, the top pick in round 4 is the 49th best fantasy football player.
Yep.
You're already at a point where all the brand names are gone at that point.
You really got to dig, and you got to
know your numbers.
Diamonds in the rough, yeah.
Because it's the thing that I have figured out playing fantasy football over the years is what you can't have on your team are any players that any given week are in your starting lineup and might produce 0. Right? Like,
yeah.
Or very low numbers, which is why, as a general strategy, and we're on fantasy football tonight, which is interesting because I do want to talk about college football week 0 and some betting advice on those games. But I try to never take players on bad teams. I don't care. Okay, Devontae Adams is great. I am not taking any players on the Raiders. Not doing it, because the Raiders are going to suck out loud. I wouldn't take any offensive players on the Saints except for Chris Olave or Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
As much as I love the Saints, there's only 2 players, because you can't have a player. What kills you in fantasy football is somebody in your starting lineup that produces a goose egg or like 2, right? That you can't overcome that. It just destroys your chance of winning. I don't care how good all the other players are on your team. If you have a couple of guys that have complete clunkers and just produce nothing or 2 or 3 points, and that can happen by injury too, unfortunately. You have somebody in your starting lineup, and in the 3rd play of the game, they blow out their Achilles.
Yeah, and
congratulations to all of you that took Aaron Rodgers last year at quarterback.
And let's not forget, no one's a sure thing. Stephon Diggs was wide receiver number 2 to 3 ranked last year in fantasy football, and he had a 7-week stretch of 119 yards and a touchdown between 7 weeks.
Well, and again, that was unusual, and that's what you have to avoid. That's what kills you. Yep. When you have a player in your top 4 or 5 who just doesn't produce, you're screwed. Anyway, fantasy football for another day.
So wait, while we're on, I just want to get one thing. While we're on the subject of fantasy football, if you're in the late rounds and you're looking for a wide receiver, pick up Jordan Whittington from the Los Angeles Rams, their 6th-round pick. Take him for a squirrel. Take him for a whirl. Maybe he'll give you something.
Man, with Puka and
Cup,
a lot of competition.
Yeah, but for a 14th, 15th round pick in your fantasy football league, not terrible.
Why not? Yeah, there you go. So tonight I was on the Jacksonville Jaguars -7.5. They're winning 14-0 in the first half right now. We'll see how that comes out. The late game tonight, the Raiders against the 49ers. That number started at -6.5. Is that Christian, look at that number right now. What is it? It's ballooned up to -9, hasn't it?
Let me check. For the NFL right now, Raiders versus Niners. It's minus. There's a lot, but it's from a range of -3.5 to -9. I'm looking at 5 different.
Where are you
sports
getting
books.
-3.5? Can I go bet there, please?
On the open line?
Oh, that's where it opened.
Yeah. So we
Okay,
got
so-
-8.5 right now. It's sitting on -8.5.
Okay, and so it's come back from -9 earlier in today. So what happened is everybody sort of assumed, oh, well, the 49ers are great. They know what they're doing. So this is the third preseason game. They're not going to play anybody. And the Raiders kind of suck, but the 49ers are that much better. So 3.5 seemed like the number. Then Shanahan came out and said, oh, no, we are playing our starters in the first half. And I don't know how long they're going to go. But because they had so many injuries in training camp, they haven't had the actual starting team ever together. This is going to be the first time the actual starting 11 on both sides of the ball are all healthy. So that news came out, and this number has ballooned to -9 and now -8.5. But I'm rolling with the 49ers, and I would lay 14 in this game. Because that's how bad the Raiders are. Their quarterback room is the worst in the NFL, and they're not going to play. They'll play Aiden O'Connell for a couple of series, and then they're going to go to their third and fourth string. Because if anything happens to, I can't believe I'm saying this. If anything happens to Gardner Minshew,
Money Minshew,
the season
baby.
is over. Oh my God. The Raiders are counting on big things from Gardner Minshew.
Do not count out my boy Gardner Minshew. He
Oh
is
my
a dog.
God. Oh Lord. How's that Derek Carr thing looking now, Raider fans? Oh my God. And it's such a travesty because they got nothing for him. You could have traded him. You just ran him out of town for nothing.
That was bad. Cutting
Oh
him
my God.
and letting him walk was bad. A trade should have happened.
Yeah, it's just wow. Anyway, all right. So that's my 2 plays for tonight in the NFL preseason. Keep in mind, everybody, NFL preseason week 3 is now NFL preseason week 4. And historically, in NFL preseason week 4, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times in this last preseason game, it's going to be it's like senior day in high school, right?
Yeah.
That's the day that Loud got on the field, right? The third string tight end played a couple of snaps just so he could say he could and he could get his letter. So there you go. All right, tomorrow, college football week 0 kicks off. The first game of the college football season will feature the team best known for being snubbed from last year. They went 13-0. They won the ACC, and they did not get to go to the big dance. This is, of course, the Florida State Seminoles, who were absolutely snubbed because their quarterback broke his leg in the second to last game of the season. And everybody thought in the room making the decisions that without that quarterback, Florida State just wasn't that good. And so an undefeated conference champion did not get to go to the playoff.
Yeah.
Which is still kind of stunning. They should have a chip on their shoulder that weighs like 500 pounds in terms of what happened. And they're taking on Georgia Tech. This game is the early game, 9 a.m. Pacific. noon Eastern. It's coming to us by Aer Lingus from Ireland, from Dublin. So even with the late season issues in the quarterback, the offense was still number one in the ACC in scoring, Florida State. That quarterback, Jordan Travis, is gone, but in the transfer portal, they get DJ Unglagle, say that 5 times fast, who went from Alabama to Oregon State, led Oregon State to a great season, and now comes back. And he's playing, Clemson to Oregon State, led the Beavers to a great season last year. Now he leaves Oregon State and he comes to the Florida State Seminoles. His passing completion rate is below 60%. And he occasionally makes just inexplicable mistakes. So that worries me. They did have some significant losses, Florida State at skill positions, but they massively reloaded in the transfer portal. They can recruit at Florida State. It doesn't hurt that they have a ton of NIL money. The offensive line actually should be even better than last year. The running back room is crowded and deep. Their top pass rusher is gone from last year, and he's now with the LA Rams? Oh, yeah, he's with the LA Rams. But they still have a bunch of NFL-level talent on that team. They're the likely ACC champion, in my opinion. Georgia Tech had its first winning season since 2018 last year. This team now has experience, talent, and some depth. They've got some good to great upperclassmen returning. They got help from the transfer portal. The team's had a couple of good recruiting classes. Superstar QB Haynes King is back after throwing for almost 3,000 yards with 27 touchdowns and running for 737 yards and 10 scores. The wideout group is solid, but there's no superstars. The run game should be great, and the team can play defense. To be successful, what they've got to stop is they had multiple 3 to 5 turnover games that they lost. If they can limit the turnovers, they can do some real damage. Now, look, the Seminoles are way more talented than Georgia Tech. They are loaded. But they've got a lot of new pieces, including DJ Unglagle, who I'm not sure I really trust at quarterback. And all this may need some time to gel with new coordinators, new quarterback, new players. And this game is being played in Dublin, so there's no home field advantage, which was big for Florida last year. And here's the thing. Florida State has a complicated offense, and they rely on the pass. Georgia Tech has a simple offense, and they rely on the run, and they pass off the run. You don't need a lot of practice to make the run game work. You need a lot to make the pass game work, and the Yellow Jackets can play defense. And as they say, defense travels. So in a weird opening game in a foreign country, I like Georgia Tech plus 10.5 in this one.
Alrighty. You're not going to get any advice from me on betting college football loud.
All right, we'll just leave that there. Okay, so in the 5 o'clock game that's getting a lot of attention, 8 p.m. Eastern, SMU, as I like to call them, or SMU, takes on the Nevada Wolfpack. SMU returned 7 starters on offense, 6 on defense from a team that went 10-3 last year, but then lost to Boston College in their bowl game, but a lot of players sat out because they were going to the NFL. The team was top 10 in the NCAA in scoring nearly 40 points per game. Preston Stone returns at quarterback. He missed the last 2 games because of a broken leg. There's plenty of talented targets for him to throw to, and the backfield is also loaded. And I expect the offense to just keep up the scoring. Now, the Nevada Wolfpack has gone 4-20 in the last 2 seasons. They've been terrible in every position on the field. New coach Jeff Choate comes in after being semi-retired. They only brought back 8 starters from last year's team. None of the top receivers came back. The Wolfpack was 124th in scoring offense with 17.8 per contest last year, and were tied for 114th in scoring defense by allowing 33.4 points per game. This is a mismatch. SMU smashes the Nevada Wolfpack in Reno and is going to easily cover the 24.5 points. All right, go to some NFL.
All righty, everyone. We got
I have
two
more
subjects.
picks to go, but go talk NFL for a minute.
Okay, so we've been hearing a lot of talk about CeeDee Lamb sitting out, Brandon Ayuk sitting out, and there's one guy who has been sitting out for most of training camp, and we haven't even talked about him once, I believe. Jamar Chase is he's looking for a contract similar to Justin Jefferson. If you're the Bengals and you cannot work out a deal with Jamar Chase, what is your panic level on a scale of 1 to 10?
That's massive.
Yeah,
That's massive. I am looking at taking Joe Burrow as my fantasy quarterback if I can't get one of the top other 3 or 4 guys that I'm looking at. But that scares the hell out of me. If Jamar Chase misses like the first 3 or 4 games, that Joe Burrow's fantasy numbers will suck.
Yeah.
And they've lost Joe Mixon, who was huge to their offense. So
Tyler Boyd's out as well.
That's a problem. If they don't have Jamar Chase, that's a problem.
Yeah, they don't have Jamar Chase. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so Montana State Bobcats take on Montana State is taking on the New Mexico Lobos, and Montana State is a tier 2. I always get confused between FCS and FBS, but they are They are a full league lower than the New Mexico Lobos. They're a 13.5-point favorite. That's about the highest favorite that one of those teams has been. And traditionally, you see the big teams schedule a cupcake from the lower league that they can blow out in the first game, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose in their first game. There's no preseason for college football. So that's what the big programs have done. However, in this case, I think New Mexico has bit off more than they can chew. They only won 4 games last year. Their highest total since 2016. Think about that. 4 games won by the New Mexico Lobos was the high water mark in wins since 2016 for that program.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Montana State won 8 games last year and went all the way to went to the second round of the playoffs in their league. And their coach is in year 4 with that program, Brent Vigen. Now, they've got some new coordinators, so there's going to be some adjustments. But Montana State has enough returning players on both sides of the ball to be competitive in their league. And the new coordinators may be something of a problem. But then you look at New Mexico has a coach who's been out of work for 5 years and all new coordinators and almost no returning starters. New Mexico has failed to cover the spread as a home underdog in 9 of its last 12 games. It's 13.5 points. It's so weird because Montana is one of the best FCS teams in the country, while New Mexico is one of the worst FBS. So I find myself in this weird position of taking the lower level team minus almost 2 touchdowns and saying, yeah, they're going to cover. Finally, the last college football game, week 0, Hawaii, Delaware State comes. Imagine Delaware State is playing Hawaii.
I'm looking at this spread. Am I looking at this right? A 40-point favorite?
Yes.
Jesus.
Look, Hawaii's going to be dynamic on offense. And Delaware State, by the way, I didn't even know they had a team until I saw this game. So I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Delaware has a team? Okay. But they're asking me to lay 40 points. Okay. Hawaii had a matchup against a similar foe last year. They played, ready for this? The Albany Great Danes. Have you ever heard of the Albany
Nope.
Great Danes? I've got to buy a T-shirt from the Albany Great Danes just so I can have one. And I'm going to wear it on the show. When Hawaii played the Albany Great Danes, they won 31-20. If Hawaii scores 49, all Delaware State needs to do is 10 points to beat the spread. Now, Army did beat D-State, who will forever be known as D-State on this program. Delaware State now has a nickname. D-State.
D-State.
Right. Army beat D-State last year 57-0, but Army plays defense, and the Rainbow Warriors see that as optional. Give me D-State plus 40.
1 minute.
There you go. Those are college football picks for week 0.
I've never seen lines that intense, that far off. That's a first one for me. All right, everyone. This has been Sir Line. We'll see you guys next week. Next week we'll actually be talking about NFL regular season picks. Let's go. We will see you guys.